Our reading today is a poem by Maya Angelou and is entitled Still I Rise. I've shortened it just a bit. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Where were you the first time you felt truly unsafe, vulnerable, compromised? Can you remember? I can. The minute I turned 16, I struck out to find a job and stumbled upon a waitressing gig at the new Johnny Rockets. I'd been enjoying a veggie burger with my friend Kim when the manager approached us and asked us if we wanted a job. At 16, I only needed a few things to be happy: soccer, holding hands with my boyfriend, and an endless supply of gas and trendy clothing. The last two being hard to come by with no means or source of income. So the next day, we came back and sat together for the dual interview, and after a few basic questions, the manager, who was in his mid to late 20s, told us he would hire us because he only hires pretty girls, and we apparently fit the bill. And while it definitely creeped me out, I couldn't put into words why. After all, hadn't he just complimented us? Wasn't he just being nice? We wanted a job, and he was offering one to us, so we both took it. As you can imagine, things went downhill fast. Like many people in the food industry can attest, sexual harassment became a common occurrence there for me. I can remember 3 distinct moments that still make me squirm. Being locked in the walk-in freezer with the same manager as he held the door closed. Pinned against the desk in his closet-sized office, unable to leave. And lastly, asked to come over to his house for a few drinks with his older friend. Each time he was rebuffed, and each time no simply didn't mean no. Somehow it always meant maybe next time to him. Now remember, I was 16, which only served to add an additional layer of horror to the story. In the scheme of things, though, I was very lucky. I escaped largely unharmed from each of these encounters, as many women don't. But it served to reinforce the idea that as a female, this was simply a part of my existence. Almost a coming-of-age milestone I would inevitably have to check off. This story could be the story of any woman in this room. Looking around, there are probably 100 stories like this among us. Stories of sexual harassment, violence, and domestic abuse are burdens women and female-identified persons have carried on their shoulders since time immemorial. We carry the burden of secrets too heavy to shoulder, the burden of sacrificing ourselves to keep others in the dark, to ensure others' happiness, even at the cost of our own. Collectively, this burden became too heavy to bear when the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke in late 2017 and the #MeToo campaign was reinvigorated. Now I say reinvigorated because hopefully most of you know that it didn't begin with protesting the working conditions of Hollywood or with the actress Alyssa Milano. It began with an activist by the name of Tarana Burke in 2007. She said she created the campaign as a grassroots movement to reach sexual assault survivors in underprivileged communities. And Oprah reminded us of this purpose when she spoke at this year's Golden Globes. Who saw that speech? It was powerful. She said, "It's not just a story affecting the entertainment industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. So I want tonight," she says, "to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like her mother, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue. They're the women whose names we'll never know. They're domestic workers and farm workers. They're working in factories and they work in restaurants, and they're in academia, engineering, medicine, and science. They're part of the world of tech and politics and business. There are athletes in the Olympics, and there are soldiers in the military." She goes on to say, "For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dare to speak the truth to power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up." Tarana Burke went on to clarify her own goals for the MeToo campaign, saying, "It wasn't built to be a viral campaign or a hashtag that is here today and forgotten tomorrow. It was a catchphrase to be used from survivor to survivor, to let folks know that they were not alone and that a movement for radical healing was happening and possible." Thankfully, it seems Burke's objectives were met when Alyssa Milano's version of the MeToo campaign picked up steam late last year. Once Milano shared it and invited other women to come forward with their own stories, soon women from all walks of life, all backgrounds and identities began to use their voices and connect with one another in profound ways. And those that were silent were rarely silent because they had no experiences to share, but rather because their stories felt too tender to place in the public eye, or because they had too many to choose from, or because they were still carrying the burden of holding things together for the sake of another's comfort or safety. What we are witnessing now in the wake of Weinstein, in the wake of Matt Lauer, in the wake of Larry Nassar, the so-called physician for the USA gymnastics team, in the wake of the fall of powerful man after powerful man, is a revolution. And like any revolution, it inspires both hope and fear, heartbreak and rejoicing, cheers and jeers. Like the anti-racism movements happening now as well, the upheaval of traditional social order is full of contention. Some of that contention is because fear of change often hardest affects those with everything to lose. Or in other words, that common phrase, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Some of the contention we're hearing is that abuse of power, intimidation, and sexual harassment and exploitation, like I described in my story, are not unique to women. Absolutely, men and non-binary folks also experience these same abuses. I would never seek to diminish their pain or ignore their experiences. But as the Me Too movement showed, for too long women have been powerless to share their experiences, and abuses by powerful people against women have been almost wholly minimized or dismissed. And lastly, some of the contention is because historically, women and female-identified persons have not been trusted to tell their stories, especially when their stories implicated powerful men. And learning to listen to women, to listen to their rage without quieting it, their pain without diminishing it, their disgust without discrediting it, this is new territory for our society. We are dismantling the system that dismisses these abuses, thereby continuing to enable the abuser, creating a cycle ripe for taking advantage of. Men like my manager take advantage of women who are young and unable to navigate the corporate structure to report their harassment effectively. They take advantage of women's instinct to protect those around us, often at the cost of our own self-worth. They take advantage of our size or stature and certainly of the cultural message that we are only as good as a man defines us to be. And they take advantage of generations of men who taught us that women should not raise their voice, should not make a scene, or as poet Olivia Cole writes in her poem Wednesday, women who are taught to fight fire with sugar, which does nothing but sweeten the flames. As the Me Too campaign spills out of Hollywood, we have seen the impact it's had on other areas of society, from politics to sports. The Larry Nassar case has been haunting to follow. With over 265 reported victims, almost all of them in their teens or younger, it is staggering to see how many times complaints were overlooked, swept under the rug, or worse yet, investigated and dismissed due to greed and the pursuit of glory. Allie Raisman, the Olympic medalist for the U.S., was one of over 100 women to testify against Nassar and had a searing message for him. She said, "Imagine feeling like you had no power and no voice. Well, you know what, Larry? I have power and a voice, and I am only just beginning to use them." This is exactly what I see happening through this movement. Women with no voice and no power historically finally being given the chance to find it within themselves and use it. She ends her statement saying, "My dream is that one day everyone will know what the words Me Too signify, that they will be educated and able to protect themselves from abusers like Larry, so they will never ever have to say the words Me Too." And Rachel Denhollander, the young woman who finally broke open the case against Nassar, addressed the judge at his trial saying, "How much is a little girl worth? How much is a young woman worth? The sentence will send a message about how serious abuse will be taken. I submit to you that these children are worth everything, worth every protection the law can offer, worth the maximum sentence." Her question, how much is a little girl or a young woman or a middle-aged or an elderly woman worth? To our society, to the other half of humanity, how much are they worth? This is the crux of Me Too. Though the movement has opened old wounds for some, it has been healing for many others. Like a great big Band-Aid being ripped from an old infected wound, the gash finally able to breathe in the fresh air and see hope for something better. The pain, the intense, stinging pain our country is going through right now because of this campaign, the pain we want to rail against, the hope of healing is worth it. The future generation of girls is worth it. And primarily, I think the hope stems from the burden of shame, of guilt, of feeling responsible, all transferring from the victims where it's historically been placed, finally where it belongs, onto the perpetrators. In the end, Me Too seems to have worked because of the courage of numbers. It transcends political lines, a phenomenon more and more difficult to accomplish, and united everyone, women and men and transgender and non-binary folks. The sheer size of the movement meant that no male-identified people could turn their eyes away from it, as everywhere they looked, they continued to see their friends, family members, and strangers open up about their experiences in each direction. Oprah said, "What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. And I'm especially proud and inspired by all the women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories. May we be brave enough to hear them, to hold their pain and feel their anger. And let us be brave enough to change the world in their names." I'd like to end this together with a ritual from a colleague by the name of Karen G. Johnson that I have slightly modified. Remembering to breathe and to breathe deeply, and then once more, to take the breath in and the breath out. We pause, poised as we are at a point of risking, at a possibility of courage. Risking vulnerability, risking pain, risking being known, risking being not believed, risking being believed, risking so much, including leaving the shadows behind and stepping into healing light, risking being brave. I invite any women, girls, or those who grew up in female bodies in the room who understand yourselves to be included in the Me Too movement. This moment in time when women are stating publicly that we have been sexually harassed, or sexually assaulted, or sexually harmed, any of those or all of them, I invite you to say aloud with me now, Me Too.
Me too.
I will try to be brave. And if you are not feeling brave, you can have some of mine. And if I am not feeling brave, I will borrow some of yours. We will add our brave together. Add it up so that all our brave together light will outshine the shadow. And for those in the room who are not yet ready to come forward but know the truth of their story and are a part of Me Too, we honor your choice to not speak at this time. I invite anyone in the room who knows someone, loves someone, regardless of their gender, who has been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, sexually harmed, any one of these or all of them. I invite you to add your committed witness to those who have risked saying aloud, Me Too.
Me too.
I will try to be brave. And if you're not feeling brave, you can have some of mine. And if I'm not feeling brave, I will borrow some of yours. And we will add our brave together, add it up so that our brave together light outshines the shadow. And now I invite you to stand in body or in spirit. And if you feel comfortable doing so, take the hand of the person standing or sitting next to you. You may not know one another, but you are connected in your hurting. In your anger, in your desire for something better. Let us bring intention to this act of courage, of witness, of solidarity. Let us notice and see, truly see, the pain in this room and the possibility. Let us commit in the quiet of our hearts to do what you can to stop any future harm. May we build and ever rebuild the world where safety, equality, and justice, wholeness and integrity are the air that we breathe. Join me in saying, Amen.
Amen.